I can't believe I married you. Those were the first words I spat at Daniel on our wedding night. Not exactly the kind of start every girl dreams of, but that was my reality. Don't forget to subscribe, it's free and helps this channel grow faster so we can keep posting more emotional Reddit stories for you. Our marriage wasn't built on love, it was an arrangement. My father and Daniel's father had been business partners for decades, and when their companies merged, the union between their children was supposed to seal the bond. I was the price of their partnership, the final contract signed in white lace and fake smiles. Daniel didn't protest. He just nodded like he always did, quiet, emotionless, unreadable. That made me hate him even more. How could he accept something so personal with so little feeling? In the first few months, I made sure he knew exactly how much I resented him. I avoided him at dinner, rolled my eyes whenever he tried to talk, and even slept in the guest room. He never raised his voice, never complained, he just existed, like a ghost in the same house. His silence infuriated me. I wanted him to react, to fight, to show something. But he never did. Then there was the night I came home late from a friend's party. I was half drunk, exhausted, and ready to argue. He was sitting on the couch, reading. "You should have called," he said quietly. "Oh, so now you care?" I snapped. "What are you, my father?" He looked at me for a moment, sighed, and said, "I was just worried." Worried? I laughed in his face. The next morning, there was a thermos of warm lemon tea on my nightstand. I ignored it, but I still drank it. Days turned into months, and despite my coldness, Daniel kept doing small, quiet things. Fixing the light in my bathroom. Leaving breakfast ready when I overslept. Driving me to work when my car broke down. I told myself he was just pretending, that it was all for appearances. But deep down, a small part of me began to wonder who he really was beneath that calm mask. One night, during a heavy storm, the power went out. I was terrified of thunder, though I never admitted it. When lightning struck nearby, I screamed, and before I realized it, Daniel was there, holding me close. His voice was low, steady, comforting. "It's okay, Emma. You're safe." I froze, my heart racing, not from fear, but from the strange warmth in his touch. For a moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace. But I quickly pushed him away. "Don't touch me," I whispered. He didn't argue. He just nodded and left the room quietly. That night, as I sat alone in the dark, I couldn't stop thinking about the way his arms felt around me. I hated him, or at least I thought I did. But deep inside, something had started to change, something I wasn't ready to face yet. The change began subtly, like the quiet shift between night and dawn. I didn't even realize it was happening until it was too late. A few weeks after that stormy night, I fell sick. It started as a mild fever, but soon I was too weak to even get out of bed. My friends stopped visiting after a few days, too busy with their own lives. But Daniel, he never left. He brought food to my room every morning, made sure I took my medication, and sat silently by my bedside while I slept. I pretended not to notice, but I did. Every small thing he did, the way he wiped sweat from my forehead or adjusted my blanket, began to chip away at the wall I had built between us. One evening, I woke up to find him dozing in a chair beside me, his head resting awkwardly on his hand. The lamp beside him was still on, a book open on his lap. For the first time, I noticed how tired he looked. His face, usually calm and expressionless, carried dark circles and faint worry lines. My heart ached unexpectedly. "Why are you still here?" I whispered. He startled awake, blinking. "You were shivering earlier. I wanted to make sure you were okay. Don't you have work?" He smiled faintly. "You're more important." Something in my chest tightened. I turned my face away, pretending to be annoyed. But his words stayed with me long after he left the room. When I finally recovered, I started noticing him, really noticing him. The way he hummed quietly while making coffee. The way he loosened his tie and sighed after a long day. The way his eyes softened whenever he looked at me, even though I rarely smiled back. One night, I overheard him on the phone with his mother. His voice was gentle but sad. "No, Mom," he said softly. "She's still distant, but I'll wait. I promised I'd take care of her." I stood there in the hallway, frozen. I'd spent so long believing he didn't care, but he'd been patient, painfully patient all along. After that, something in me broke. I began to return his kindness in small ways. I started cooking dinner once in a while. I asked about his day. I even thanked him once, and the way his face lit up, you'd think I'd given him the world. Still, the guilt lingered. How many times had I hurt him with my words? How many nights had he gone to bed wondering what he'd done wrong? One Saturday morning, I found him in the garden trimming the roses. "You love those flowers, don't you?" I asked. He looked up, surprised that I'd spoken first. "They remind me of you," he said simply. "Beautiful, even when you're covered in thorns." I laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time in years. And as he smiled back, I realized I was in trouble. The man I had once hated had somehow become the only person who made my heart race. But just when I began to accept what I was feeling, I noticed something different about him. He seemed distant, quieter than usual, like a man hiding something. Something was wrong. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But as days passed, Daniel's distance became impossible to ignore. He still smiled, still did the little things, made breakfast, watered the plants, asked about my day, but there was a heaviness behind his eyes, a quiet sadness he couldn't hide. One night, I found him sitting alone in the study, staring at a photo on his desk. It was of us from our wedding day. I remember that day vividly. I wasn't smiling. My expression was stiff, distant, and cold. But in the picture, Daniel was looking at me, not the camera. There was something raw in his gaze, something I never saw before. "You still keep that?" I asked softly from the doorway. He looked startled for a moment, then smiled weakly. "It's one of my favorites. Even though I look like I'd rather be anywhere else?" He chuckled lightly, setting the photo down. "You were angry that day, but you still showed up." That meant something to me. I wanted to ask him what he meant, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I watched as he rubbed his temples, looking exhausted. His skin looked paler than usual, and there was a faint tremor in his hands. "Are you okay?" I asked. He hesitated, then nodded quickly. "Just tired." "Don't worry." But I did worry. Over the next few weeks, he became weaker. I'd find him sitting on the stairs, catching his breath. Sometimes he'd wince when he thought I wasn't looking. And when I asked if he'd seen a doctor, he'd change the subject. One afternoon, while he was out, I went looking for a pen in his study and stumbled upon an envelope tucked inside a drawer. My name was written on it in his neat handwriting. I hesitated, but curiosity won. Inside was a folded medical report, and the world around me seemed to tilt as I read the words, "Chronic heart failure. Stage 3. My hands trembled. My heart pounded painfully. Tears blurred my vision as I sank into his chair. Daniel had known. He'd known all along. And he never said a word. When he came home, I confronted him, my voice shaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" He froze, the color draining from his face. "Emma, don't you Emma me," I cried. "You've been sick and you hid it from me? Why?" He looked at me with that same calm sadness that used to annoy me, but now it broke my heart. "Because I didn't want your pity. You already hated me. I didn't want you to stay because you felt sorry." I covered my face as tears spilled freely. "You idiot," I whispered. "You don't even know how much that hurts." He reached out slowly, brushing my tears away with trembling fingers. "Then don't cry, please. I just wanted to love you, even if it wasn't forever." That night, I lay awake beside him, listening to his uneven breathing. The man I once despised was now the only person I couldn't imagine losing. And for the first time, I prayed, "Please, don't take him away from me." The next morning, I woke up before Daniel. He was still asleep, his breathing shallow, his face pale against the pillow. I sat there quietly, staring at him, realizing how much I had taken him for granted. The man I once called emotionless had carried the weight of our marriage alone, loving me even when I gave him every reason not to. I decided that day that things had to change. When he finally opened his eyes, I smiled, not the fake kind I used to give, but a real one. "Good morning," I said softly. He blinked in surprise, then smiled back. "That's the first time you've ever said that." "Well," I whispered, trying not to cry, "I think I owe you a lot of things I never said." From that moment, I made it my mission to make him happy. I cooked his favorite meals, even learned how to make his favorite soup from his mom. We took walks together in the evenings, hand in hand. Sometimes he'd stop and look at me like he couldn't believe it was really happening. At first, he tried to stop me from doing too much. "You don't have to, Emma," he'd say gently. "You've done enough." But I'd shake my head. "No, Daniel. You've done enough. Now it's my turn." He'd just smile and pull me close. For months, I took care of him the way he once cared for me. Hospital visits became part of our routine, and even though some days were hard, we faced them together. I started reading to him at night, simple stories that made him laugh. He said my voice helped him sleep better. There were days I'd find him staring at me quietly, his eyes full of something deep and unspoken. One evening, while watching the sunset from our balcony, he took my hand. "Emma," he said softly, "you don't have to stay if this gets worse. I want you to live." I cut him off before he could finish. "Don't ever say that again. I'm not going anywhere." Tears filled his eyes, and for the first time, he let them fall. He leaned into me, and I held him tightly. In that moment, I realized love wasn't about the grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about choosing someone every single day, even when it's hard. A few months later, the doctors suggested a surgery. Risky, but necessary. Daniel was scared, and so was I, but we had hope. On the morning of the operation, I held his hands tightly and said, "When you wake up, I'll be right here. Don't you dare leave me." He smiled weakly. "I'll try not to." Hours passed like years in that hospital waiting room. Every second felt like my heart was being squeezed. When the doctor finally came out, my legs almost gave out. "He made it," the doctor said with a small smile. "It'll be a long recovery, but he's going to be okay." I cried, not from fear this time, but from relief. When I walked into his room and saw him lying there, eyes half open, I took his hand and whispered, "You did it." He smiled faintly. "Told you I'd try." I laughed through my tears and kissed his forehead. "I love you, Daniel." It was the first time I'd said it out loud. His eyes widened, and then he smiled, a tired, happy smile. "Say it again." "I love you," I whispered. "And I'm never going to stop." Months later, when he was strong enough to walk again, we renewed our vows quietly in our backyard. No guests, no fancy decorations, just us and a simple promise to love each other better this time. As we stood there, hand in hand, Daniel looked at me and said, "You used to hate me." I smiled. "I know. But now I can't stop loving you." And for once, the silence between us wasn't heavy, it was full of everything we never needed words to say. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. It really helps the channel grow and keeps you updated on more emotional love stories like this one. Comment below. Would you forgive someone if love came too late?